We can start now. How everyone? My name is Laura Benitez. I'm happy to welcome you to this first presentation of Braiding Friction. Due to the pandemic, Biofriction has set up a series of working groups and online events to instigate critical debates on current situation and possible scenarios. And as probably some of you already know, Biofriction is a Creative Europe project led by Angar in collaboration with BioArt Society, Cultivamos Cultura and Kersnikova Institute, as well as with the support and associated partners of Anthropex and the Institute of Biomedical Research of Barcelona. So Biofriction as a project works on the intersections between biology, biotech, fictions, and arts as surfaces of friction, with particular, let's say, attention to bioexperimentation and transhack feminist approach to biopractices. So the question is how now to address the multiplicity of issues and layers related to the COVID in a project like Biofriction, and how not to use Biofriction as a framework to generate encounters in which to discuss issues related to this current situation. So for this reason, today we present to you the Braiding Friction activity. Since May, 4 groups are working on specific questions and concerns raising from the current situation. Questions such as what is the role of arts in the unpacking and understandings of the now? How can arts mobilize a better understanding of possible futures? How can art spaces be prepared to respond to this possible pendulum of cyclical outbreaks as well? Or, for example, what alliances can be woven in this context of precariousness, life, death, and malaise? So, as I said, today we have the first presentation of Braiding Friction with an introduction to each working group. In the following week, we'll have the presentations of each groups. So for today's presentations, we have here Dalila Honorato, host of the working group Art Shows and Public Health, Chapella Patrick, coordinator of Aerosol Notes, and Maria Radomska, host of the Non-Living Queerings, and myself as the host of Fagologies. And Dalila is a facilitator of safe spaces for hosting the interactions of ideas around liminal issues in the frames of art and science. Her research focuses in embodiment, monstrosity, and the uncanny, and the acrobatic balance between phobia and paraphilia. She's a tenure assistant professor in aesthetics and visual semiotics at the Ionian University in Greece, and a collaborator at the Center of Philosophy of Science at the University of Lisbon in Portugal. So Chapella Patrick is a new media artist and former scientific researcher currently based between Ljubljana and Amsterdam. She received a PhD in biomedicine at the University of Ljubljana and an advanced master in arts from Lucca, Brussels. And her practice is a multi-species endeavor, a composite of natural science, wet media, and performance. She envisions artistic experiments that enact strange relationships to reveal the ontological and epistemological underpinning of our biotechnological societies and challenge the scope of the adjacent possible. And Marietta Radomska is a postdoc at Linköping University in Sweden in gender studies and at University of Helsinki in Finland in art history. She's the co-director of the Posthumanities Hub, founder of the Eco and BioArt Research Network, founding member of Queer Death Studies Network and International Network for Eco-Critical and Decolonial Research. So also, just to let you know that we have a chat, so we invite you to keep the questions for the final part, and then you can ask questions, comments, or whatever you consider some information, for example, that you want to share. And just to begin, I will go with Maria Radomska and the presentation of non-living queer rings. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Laura. Let's see if I succeed technologically here. Okay, that's not what you should see. Sorry. Okay, I hope you can see me right now, right? I mean, meaning my screen.
Mm-hmm.
I do hope. Okay. So thank you so much for this generous introduction. And I will now try to fit myself into the time frame, not to bore anyone to death, but I mean, say a few words about our group. The group members are, apart from myself, Tariqa Hapoya, Margarita Pevere, Marcus Schmidt, and Myra Rojo Gomez. And I will say a few more words about the members and more, I would say, flesh out things. But first, perhaps some of you might actually wonder what stands behind the name non-living queering. So maybe a few words about our conceptual anchoring, at least behind the name. So there are two concepts that pop up there. You might wonder what they kind of try to indicate. So first is the non-living written with the slash, which in our work or our kind of guiding tool refers to the enmeshment of the processes of living and dying, living and non-living as spaces of ambiguity that refuse to be easily classified as one, namely living or non-living. And examples of entities that might kind of fill that kind of ambiguous space are, of course, viruses, prions, viroids, inorganic protocells, but also, to some extent, technologically supported bio artworks. And then there is also the concept of queer or queering, which we take very much in the tradition of, I would say, queer eco-criticism, namely as it functions for us not as a denominator of identity, but more as a verb or an adverb, which refers to that which challenges normativities, resists them, which challenges also fixed binary classifications and does not remain limited to gender and sexuality only. And before I get to a more kind of, I would say, in-depth presentation of our rationale and the questions we are engaging with, I would like to say a few words, about participants or group members. So because you heard about myself, now you see that I'm also a philosopher. So you might kind of suspect what is my entry point. I will proceed to the presentation of other members. So first, I would like to present Tariqa Hapoya, who is a Finnish visual artist based in New York. And Tariqa's artworks, publications, writings, and political projects investigate the mechanics of othering with a specific focus on issues arising from the anthropocentric worldview of Eurocentric traditions. Tariqa represented Finland in the 55th Venice Biennale. Her work was awarded the Antti Prize for Live Art in 2016, Ducati Prize in 2008. Her collaboration with Laura Gustafsson was awarded the Finnish State Media Art Award in 2016 and Killa Prize in 2013. And actually, Tariqa's work is now being shown also at Helsinki Art Museum. So if anyone has a chance to be located there, I strongly recommend checking her work out. And now I'd like to present Margarita Pevere. Margarita is an artist and researcher with a visceral fascination for biological matter. Bacteria, animals, plants are her allies in the exploration of ecological complexity. Her installations and performances are chimeras intertwining poetics and controversy, critique and desire. Margarita is also a PhD candidate in artistic research at Aalto University in Helsinki, in collaboration with Biophilia Laboratory and supported by the Finnish National Agency for Education Kona Foundation. And then I have a pleasure to present Markus Schmidt, who is the founder of Biofriction, a technology assessment, science communication, and art science company in Vienna, Austria. With an interdisciplinary PhD and a background in electronic engineering, biology, and risk assessment, he carried out environmental risk assessment and public perception studies in various fields, such as genetically modified crops, nanotechnology, converging technologies, and synthetic biology. He has published over 35 peer-reviewed papers and 3 edited books about the future of life, and in 2010, he helped to chart the field of xenobiology. And finally, Mayra Citlali Rojo Gomez is a Mexican artist, interdisciplinary researcher, and curator in visual arts and body discourses, specifically focused on gender and race. She developed her postdoctoral research about bacterial cellulose, and currently she works with critical association between symbiosis, evolution teratology, and diffuse identities, which interrogate the limits between the human and the non-human in the vegetal and bacterial universes. And now let me get to our starting points. So first I should say that the ongoing pandemic of COVID-19, in a sense, and also very much throughout the media, exposed SARS-CoV-2, that is the virus, as a very potent non-human actor that resists the joint scientific, public health, and socio-political efforts to contain and understand both the virus and the illness it causes. But I mean, this predominant narrative appears to conceal more than it reveals. So the kind of seeming agentiality of the virus is itself just one manifestation of the continuous destruction of biodiversity, climate change, socioeconomic inequalities, neocolonialism, overconsumption, and anthropogenic degradation of nature, broadly speaking. And furthermore, to add complications to this, focusing on the virus, that is an entity that does not fulfill the basic biological criteria of what counts as life and holds an ambiguous status between the living and non-living, brings into question the issue of the agentiality of non/living matter. So this kind of brings us back to our guiding concept. So while the story of the power or potency of the virus seems to get center stage, overshadowing complex and perverse entanglement of processes and phenomena which activated or mobilized these potentials in the first place, the pandemic also becomes a prism that light and simultaneously amplifies the issues of environmental violence, social and environmental injustices, temporal, spatial, and material scales at work in the Anthropocene, more than human or non-human, but also non/living agentiality, and ethical as well as political responses that the present situation may or may not mobilize. So bringing the perspectives and toolboxes from across art, science, and theory, we focus on the following questions. And these are the questions we do not limit our explorations to, but they are the questions that guide us, our kind of main point of reference. So first, what is the role of art in the unpacking understanding of the now? So what is the role of art in the kind of diagnosis of our present? How can art mobilize a better understanding of possible futures, how it can envision or play around with that idea? But also, how can we understand the long and short term that is temporal, local, and global, that is spatial, but also micro and macro scales of more than human and non-living actors and the processes of the Anthropocene they are involved in. So for instance, the virus that kind of became known only fairly recently. But also, what are the conceptual and material boundaries of living and non-living, as well as their potentials and limitations as actors? And a very heavy question and simultaneously very important to us, namely, what ethical and political response may such an onto-epistemological revision of understandings generate? And by what we mean by onto-epistemological revision is this taking seriously of those perverse entanglements of living and non-living and human and non-human, the kind of relationalities between the scientific, biological, theoretical, economics, and so on and so forth. So the complexity of the world we are in. And then I would like to also mention, to kind of just wrap it up, and I run out of time almost, some of the points explored in our art, science, philosophy discussion so far. And of course, this is very much in progress. So we talked about borders and boundaries, physical, bodily, but also safety boundaries, geopolitical boundaries, also in the context of making and showing art before and post-pandemic. What does it mean to cross those boundaries, transgress them? And with the question of transgression, we are thinking about challenging and questioning social norms that are sort of implied there. We also spoke about universalisms, exclusions, injustices of different kinds, extractive politics, and the use of science in relation to the pandemic, and not only. We spoke about a virus and the pandemic as an amplifier, as it was mentioned earlier in our kind of rationale. And also, we spoke about the notion of humanity that comes very much in the forefront of the discussions on the pandemic, and simultaneously reveals the disposable people, the disposable animals, and the kind of ontological reductionisms that are driving often those divisions. And finally, of course, the topic of ecological unsustainability or sustainability of the art field and the blow-up effect of the pandemic came into our discussions. So I think that I should stop here and I will stop sharing my screen. Hopefully it works or not. Lost in technology so far, and thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Marietta. And Estela, if you want, you can start, please.
Hi, I always forget to unmute my mic. I'm sorry. But now you can hear me, it's fine, yeah? Okay. So I'll be a talking head for a little while and then I'll show you a video. So our group's title is Traveling Time, Aerosol Wormholes. And yeah, I'll just get into it. So far this year has been marked by way too many ruptures to be able to think through them and come to some sensible apprehension of events, while at the same time staying at least moderately sane. So instead, aerosol nuts, as we call ourselves, embrace the opportunity to travel the margins of this experience together. So we liken our efforts to observing a shadow in the dark that you can only see moving when you look elsewhere, but are still fully attuned to the periphery of your vision. Because we think that shadows, demons, and ghosts can be excellent guides through these times. So as other participants of this wonderful Braiding with Friction, the Aerosol Knots 2 are a really fascinating group of people, so rich with knowledges and accolades that I will rather avoid using flattening labels and only introduce them or introduce us via an overly particular detail that I choose. So I'll start with Adriana. Adriana is a xenologist weathering these times with her queer sister in Wichita, Kansas. She sometimes spends hours watching the shimmer of Midwest storms through a refractive foil on the window. And this seems very much in line with her pursuit of the melding of various temporalities, from quantum physics to music to space travel, at the intersection with queer poetics and aesthesis. On the other hand, as a non-philosopher during Corona times, Agnieszka took up sewing at her abode in Deventer in the Netherlands. And perhaps it was the mesmerizing action of the sewing machine that sparked her interest in philosophical storytelling. Or perhaps the invasion of wild pigs in her hometown in Poland. Or maybe simply the comfort of her reading chair. Leslie has been growing things. At her place in Mexico City, she plays her synths, her algos, algae, and lived experience to share with us what flourishes when Western physics theories meet the cosmological visions of ancestral Latin American narratives. So she showers us with gifts, one of which we will also share with you in a bit. And then in our group, there's also another present absence, Luca. He's a philosopher and environmental activist, and he's currently answering the call of urgency in the face of Slovenia's political attack on the environment. So we can also understand his absence. During quarantine, Ingrid's fully committed herself to somatics, which includes dancing to music each evening till she drops from exhaustion. Rituals, she says, are materialist practices that connect us to the here and now, even to the ghosts we can only discern from their traces. Her practice is very much influenced by plants. And while Ingrid visits her enchanting community gardens in Brussels, I stuff our Amsterdam red light district apartment with plants that should have been grown outdoors. I think I might be a plant myself, but while in the process of getting to the bottom of this, I stubbornly keep looking for the silver lining in the situation. So, what have we been doing? We've been exploring what we call a Zeno Methodology. So, a transient practices that unfold the without with the within, meaning unfold the outside, the unknown, the mundane, the somatic, that gets brought into contact and melded with that which is already codified and understood. So what we do with the shadows consistently mutates through encounters between us, each already mutated by our own chance encounters, desires, and imaginations. So this Zeno methodology never quite defined, results in storytelling with more than one narration and with interweaving, forking, and cross-pollination. So we practice contamination as this ontoepistemology. And before we even understood what we were doing, a chance encounter with a paragraph from Deleuze on the eternal return, plants that change our perception of time, and quantum foam creating its own space-time, nudged us towards a journey which might or might not lead us to write a travel without a guide instructional. So besides the turmoil of these potent aerosol agents have triggered, they've also opened portals to each other. So we've transmogrified braiding friction to braiding with fiction, and finally to the bulbous time we spend together till we meet again. Now I would like to invite you to listen to a 3-minute excerpt that Leslie composed with an AI of outer space images and also sound based off of our collaborative writing called The Shimmer Traveler. So if you have headphones, it's best to listen through them. And I would like to ask Matteo to play it for us, please.
The Shimmer Traveler. She walked through the forest quickly, even though she knew it will not shorten the distance.
The path has to be walked, the travel has to be felt.
No matter how you will define time and space now. Sweat on her skin was sticky and she already felt the warm coolness of the lake, imagining its crystal surface behind the trees.
The sand floating from the ground was already irritating her skin, scratching surface on her feet.
A sweet smell of rotting fruit started to become nauseating. She assessed by now the same stones marked by the same curves of little fingers.
Am I lost? She asked herself out loud, but with unbelief as she memorized the path hundreds of times.
But when the trees started to bow and the grass danced into pulsating rhythm of a song never sung, she gained the confidence. It has started, she thought.
It was breathing now loudly and the presence she felt on every skin bone.
Am I going to faint? She asked them, looking for the safe place to stop before her eyes would fill out with the purple spots indicating the passage is closed. She stopped her breath. Her eyes froze until filled with dry needles, forcing her to blink.
The shimmering voice started to whisper. There is no adiaphora, although we can imagine it. And indeed, when we fail to understand
The eternal return, if we make it as a consequence, an application of identity. We fail to understand the eternal return if we do not oppose it to identity in a particular way. The eternal return is not the permanence of the same, the equilibrium state or the resting place of the identical. It is not the same or the one which comes back in the eternal return, but return is itself the one which ought to belong to diversity
and to that which differs. She started to murmur. Am I in adiaphora in eternal return of my imaginings? If adiaphora is only an imagining, does imagining its return can be considered as reality? Does the double negation make something true?
Thank you so much, Bella, for the video and the presentation. Have you finished or would you like to continue a bit more? Super. So thanks. And Dalila, please, if you want to start with your presentation, it would be a pleasure.
I guess you can hear me. Yeah. Okay, let me try also my luck with technology. Okay. I guess you lost my head too fast, but you can hear my voice. So the topic of the group is staying in touch, post-coronavirus art curating. And we're very thankful for this opportunity to develop this work as work group members and fellows. And we have named ourselves, well, somehow a little bit without thinking about the exotism art shows and public health, we might change during our mixing and experience. So in our initial statement, we said that our objective is to develop different scenarios for ensuring the access to art as an essential need for the cultural identity of a society and its individuals. And this was mostly the starting point, meaning in some countries where essentials are shops for food and no problem, but shops that sell guns might be doubtful. But closing spaces of culture and education was something that we saw as obviously required, but maybe it could be avoided if we had the required technology, because otherwise we might be losing what brings us that quality of humanity. So in our aims to propose a variety of provisions that can guarantee the required level of biosafety and security engineering further than physical distancing and the adequate methods of decontamination in art spaces. Our sources? Well, historical data of previous pandemics, information on technology and protocols of biocontainment used in high security labs, space and underwater research, and science fiction storytelling. What we were not expecting was that this could become an exercise on how to develop digital research collaboration. So this presentation is within and without, meaning we are presenting our experiences as the research keeps going and the experience is conducted, but we will leave for a final outcome, well, whatever we have produced. So our work group members, myself, and we have selected some, some of the sentences that have been written by the participants and how do they relate to the topic. So Louise Mackenzie, she's from the UK. Isabel Buraki, she's based in Brussels. We have our CVs in the page of Biofriction, so I'm not. Robertina Sochanix from Slovenia. Carolina, I'm sorry, Ziniefix, I'm doing my best. And this is Experiments in Digital Residency. So what we have so far, since we started, and this was April 16, we have more than 160 pages of content, daily content that runs on social media, meaning our text messenger. So we have converted all this and we got this sort of content. And we have different topics there. We have this sense that we are living daily somehow together by sharing the musics that we probably think to relate somehow with the topic, by sharing some, knowledge that one or the other might have and can share, and how to do things, how to accomplish the next task, even if we're having our period or not, and what that can cause in our daily, patients. We have tried to share also text articles and different things that might be helpful. So far we have at least located 50 different texts on our favorite place to include things. We have accomplished 6 meetings, and this includes our yesterday meeting every week for synchronizing the decision making. And we are lucky to have in our meetings the guest star, Marta Menezes, who is a big fan of sci-fi, and she has been super cool sharing also her sources. Yes, and we do try to share our tasks and to accomplish certain, agree on certain topics, and what are we going to do, what have we achieved. Sometimes it's not always consensual or not always easy, but we do agree that at the end that was the best option. So we are doing an experiment in ergodic participatory writing. And this has very much with everything that I've listened so far. Okay, we're just using probably a different language to express what we are trying to do. So let me explain step one on this experiment. We have tried an embodied correlation with the theme. Doing exercises such as address your practice research in general and in relation to the topic, define what your aims, and step two, multiple narrative perspectives. We do know that we are doing a story that has different narrators that have different perspectives that allow to have a more complete vision of the story. Each narrator produces different memorandum and different outcomes. And we are using as many sources as possible. We also have a chronological theme, meaning that it is repeated in time and during three different stages of technological development. And those also affect the maturing of our own characters. Yes, because we have on step three, narrator and persona development. So you are a part of a tactile role-playing sci-fi environmental storytelling game. You are a member of this team dedicated to curating art shows in the post-COVID era. You run your own curatorial department dedicated to the development of biotechnological art show strategy. Welcome. Here we have K130, responsible for the Department of Safe Transformations. Ari Val, responsible for the Department of Art Interaction. Sodalit Carnelian, responsible for the Wearables Department. Anis Neuchâtel, responsible for the PR department. Vesel, responsible for the Deportment department. Step 4, the production of memoranda, technology, and protocols. We are working on this, but this is an example of, well, explaining what is the boundary division, right? A part of Vesel department. Step 5 will be strings and loose stitches, meaning we do have to have a narrative at the end, or somehow lines of thought that and elements that can be connected. Our outcomes can still be discussed, but we do know that we will be doing in July a performative multiplayer live presentation, including a diverse body of documentation. And we do intend to have an updated list of sources on the Biofriction website. And that's it.
Super. Thank you so much, Dalila. Sounds amazing. So, okay, now it's my turn. Matteo, could you please share my presentation? So in my case, I have the pleasure of hosting the group called Phagologists Alliances in the Space of Necropolitics. So in our case, we are working, yeah, now can I see it? Okay. In our case, of course, we are working on necropolitics, and we are referring to this sovereignty in terms to exercise control over mortality and to define life as a deployment or manifestation of power. So for us, it was crucial to work on necropolitics within the framework of the COVID because it's an opportunity to rethink if necropolitics can be, for example, a critical method or a critical tool, or if necropolitics could be taken or provides a different register for thinking through this dimension of this unfolding political moment. So I just want to briefly introduce the group members. So Quimera Rosa, you know pretty well Quimera Rosa probably, is a nomadic lab created in Barcelona in 2008, and their research and experiments are mainly focused on body, technoscience, and identities and post-identities. And they are mainly working on how to produce the so-called no-natural cyborgs identities from a transdisciplinary perspective. And of course, they are referring to Haraway's notion of cyborg. And in this case, for them is crucial as well to work in collaborative terms, and they are part of this transnational network called Hacteria. And also I would like to take the opportunity to say thanks, because projects such as Biofriction, for example, beyond the institutional framework are happening precisely thanks to initiatives such as Hacteria, and how they've been working for the last years on biotech, biology, all these intersections, also in terms of open culture and open tools and open source. So the next ones are KinLab. KinLab is also an interdisciplinary hub in the San Siro neighborhood in Milan, which will be run by multiple subjects. Among those, there are Maddalena Fragnito and Zoe Romano. And also I would like to take the opportunity to recommend you to check the presentation that yesterday was hosted by Axioma on the Money Lab, and Maddalena was participating there. And in this case, during the last 2 years, Maddalena Fragnito and Zoe Romano have been working together on revealing with care different projects and related to cares. And Zoe is an independent researcher, craftivist, digital strategist, and lecturer focused on social innovation, women in tech, technology, open design, and open tools in general terms. And Maddalena Fragnito right now is a PhD doctoral student at the Center for Post-Digital Cultures. Is also a cultural activist exploring the intersections between art, transfeminisms, critical theory, technologies, and politics, and mainly focused on practices of commoning social reproduction. And also she is related to Macau as well in Milan. And the next ones are Power Makes Us Sick. They are a creative research project focusing on autonomous health care practices and networks from feminist perspectives. Power Makes Us Sick seeks to understand the ways that our mental, physical, and social health impacted by imbalances in an abuses of power. So for us was like crucial to have them in a group working on necropolitics during this pandemic. So in this case, they are pretty committed, and they understand mobility, force, or otherwise as an increasingly common aspect of life in the Anthropocene. And they are working in different strategies for solidarity and resistance and sabotage, and well, committed to deep concern for planetary well-being and planetary worldling. So the next one the next participant is Steve Kurtz from the Critical Art Ensemble. Steve Kurtz is a professor emeritus of art at the State University of New York, and as you know pretty well, one of the founding members of the international acclaimed art and theater group Critical Art Ensemble. Precisely 2 years ago, they published a book entitled Aesthetics, Necropolitics, and Environmental Struggle. And as you know pretty well, for the last decades, they've been producing interventions and provocations that examine questions surrounding information and communication technologies, biotechnologies, and environmental struggle. And also in this group, we have Tony Gabaldon. He's a research professor at the Institute for Biomedical Research in Barcelona and the Supercomputing Center here as well in Barcelona. He's a researcher interested in understanding how organisms, populations, and complex ecological communities adapt, and how their properties and traits originate and evolve across the tree of life. So he does so from a comparative genomics perspective and using interdisciplinary approaches that compromise both experiments and computation. And also, I'm the host of the working group. So, in our case, we decided to work on necropolitics, and to work on necropolitics, we choose to work with the figuration of bacteriophage, and we decided to work with this figuration as a counter-proposal to the narratives of the virus as an enemy to be defeated, and as a counter-proposal to the war narratives. So what we are trying to do with this figuration is trying to think in an actively way what political, aesthetic, and affective imagination we are able to active within this situation. So as a starting point, we have sorry, one second. Yes. So we are working, as you can see here, for example, on questions such as sovereignty. For us, sovereignty right now is a key question, because we understand that if we want to discuss on necropolitics within these pandemics, within this COVID situation, is not simply an epidemiological crisis, but a crisis of sovereignty. So in this sense, for us, this emergent necropolitical landscape defined by states that have the power over life and those with only power over death. So we think that we are returning to basic techniques of territorial control. So for us here is quite important how to work on how fiction is working here, the fiction of mobility, the fiction of borders as well. And we are working as well on the stay-at-home class. For us, that is being an important issue as well. Who is privileged enough to stay at home? What does it mean to stay at home? When this stay at home is volunteer, and when this stay at home is because you are stuck, and then it's not a privilege anymore. So how this situation is showing up and maintaining at the same time the class structure, and well, how classes are being in a way rearranged within this situation as well. So yeah, the next one. Yeah, thank you so much, Mateo. Yeah, no, the previous one. I also want to take the opportunity to say thanks to Matteo, who has been working pretty in a super disposable way in order to make all these platforms working. So for us, as I was saying, there are some questions as well for the group that are key questions, for example, regarding the administration of death. No, this continuous feeling that something is being done, but we don't have how it's being done, how important is for us to pay attention to the material conditions of absolute structural and systemic violence, and how we are enmeshed in a sacrificial economy, and at the same time, the difficulty that we are lacking of a proper language in terms of necropolitics. So we are trying to work on also on this issue. What does it mean to be lacking of a proper language on necropolitics? And also we are working on contagion and the agency of the virus as well, because in this case for us is pretty important to pay attention to the fact that there's all the narrative that are being articulated, in terms of contagion. For example, this peculiar, let's say, way of seeing the others as a threat. No, so for us also is quite interesting to work on the agency of the virus. Is the virus who has the agency to spread and to produce. So for us in this way is pretty interesting as well to work on agentialism and bacteriophage. And also for us we are right now working on temporality as well, because we are all sharing this endless feeling of waiting for a horrible process to end, but we are all enmeshed in this uncertainty. So, and what does it mean? No, what kind of hyper real, hyper biopolitical and necropolitical consequences has this experience of this peculiar temporality, like this endless waiting. So in our case, we are also sharing materials, we are sharing questions, also we are putting in common some different perspectives from the conceptual framework and from a conceptual perspective, but also working within the collectives and the artistic practices that they are developing right now. So I would say that from us is all in this case. And yes, we are working on some questions as well, questions that I already mentioned before. So for us, in a way, we're trying to take this figuration of the bacteriophage, if you want, as a contradictory figuration, entangled between the power of life and power of death, between bios and thanatos, between no longer and no yet, and between struggle and mutual aid. So from here, we are trying to work on this possibility of using necropolitics as a critical method to confront the situation that we are living right now. So that's all from my side. Okay, now my camera is working. Okay. Okay, so thanks so much to all of you for your wonderful presentations. We have the chat, so I don't know if we have some.
Okay, so I can post the link to the chat and people can join in Jitsi directly.
Okay.
Yes?
Okay, super. So if you have any questions, comments, we will be hosting the presentations of each working group the following weeks. And the next one is the non-living clearings, the 17th of June, if I'm not wrong. So that's our first one. So then we'll have the opportunity to listen to you, to see what with what materials you've been working on, what kind of questions you will be share with us. Super, super. So, okay. So we should, Mateo, hey, Marta is here. Hi, Marta. Very welcome. Okay, I can't see any interventions in the chat, Mateo. Maybe there's no comments. Yeah, I mean, too much hyper connectivity these weeks. I totally understand it. So, well, maybe if we don't have any questions or from the audience, or if you want to comment something or to ask something to the other host, up to you. Okay, the sound now is pretty messy.
Hey.
Hey, hi.
Hi.
Marta.
Eric is here too.
Okay. So Marta, Eric, or the other ones joining right now, would you like to ask some questions? Would you like to share some comments? Okay, the sound now is pretty messy.
Hey.
Hey, hi. Can you hear me properly?
Now I can. If you did you ask me a question?
Yeah, I was saying that if you want to ask some questions or to share some comments.
No, thank you very much, all of you, for the presentations. It's really exciting to see what everybody's going to think or to experience. It's a difficult moment because we do love working with each other. We know. I know this from all of the participants and all of the group heads, and I know it's difficult to work in like this at a distance. Mm-hmm. Can maybe the four of you just tell me a little bit of how it's changed the way you work, how it's impacted on how you communicate with each other, and how you progress in the work.
Marta, I lost you for a couple of seconds. Could you repeat the final part, please?
How does it affect your progress in the work?
Mm-hmm. Well, I can start. How does it affect? Yeah, it's a great question. Thank you so much for asking. For example, in my case, as all of you, we are like working on this online interface all the time, you know, like producing data all the time, and you know, like having these encounters but without the embodiment, no? And it has some potentials, of course, because with this kind of tools, for example, we can work with people who are based in different territories and in different, let's say, time zones. And that, of course, is an opportunity. But at the same time, there's something, I think that we all are like hyper busy, or we all have been hyper busy for the last 2 months and a half. So you can feel also, you know, that some people they are tired. I'm tired. So it's not so easy to be focused on debates or to find proper time, like a qualitative time to share materials, to read, to discuss. Because, for example, these kind of interfaces are changing completely the way that we are having debates, or the way that we are communicating each other, or the way that we can ask questions, because also we have to pay attention, like me right now, that we are like hearing my echo. So we are like, you know, like paying attention to all the technical stuff. And sometimes I think, at least in my experience, it's pretty, let's say, I don't want to use the term annoying, but there's something there that you are using so much energy to take care of these technical issues and conditions that I think that sometimes is a bit more difficult to stay focused on materials, for example.
Anybody else?
I think that maybe I would jump then. You know, speaking of like technology that is sort of distracting and maybe sometimes destructive. But I think that, you know, in a sense, I would say that probably our group really shares this a lot. I mean, I think everyone's or every member's kind of way of working changed because of the situation. So of course, everyone has this amount of, you know, different meetings or work commitments that actually go very often via, you know, not only Jitsi, but all those different like online interfaces. Those things multiplied. So there is a different probably temporality to things. And it's probably also not that easy to synchronize calendars or synchronize platforms via which we communicate. I think that now I have an echo of probably maybe someone doesn't have headphones and I can hear myself double, but anyway. So I think that there is a, you know, in a sense, like the kind of technology resists. But I also do think that to some extent it has taken us a little bit of time at the very beginning to actually like work out certain protocols of how we find it most efficient to work and communicate and conduct discussions. And I do think that probably we kind of arrived at some sort of, you know, golden formula that sort of fits the crazy calendars of each of the members in our group. But I mean, of course, I mean, you know, the whole situation and the kind of temporal scale of or timeline of the project, I think we had to take some time to work that out. But what is also very interesting, I think, and this is not necessarily kind of, you know, speaking to your question or your point, what kind of happened throughout, you know, this sort of like meeting on the platform by people like really spread in different locations is probably the kind of, you know, cross-pollination of different fields. And I think that this also goes not only within within the group, a very kind of interesting collaborations forming or kind of ideas forming through bringing of different perspectives. But what I think is fascinating in general in terms of the entire Braiding Friction project is that while maybe some things have already been kind of visible to the audience during those presentations, I think that it is particularly kind of visible to the different members of the project, namely the fact that discussions across different groups actually speak to each other as much as, we are aware what other groups are working on. So I think that has been a kind of, interesting benefit that maybe if the kind of the situation wasn't like really turned around 180 degrees as it is right now, so kind of like working via the interface, that makes things difficult. Maybe, it wouldn't be, that cross-pollination wouldn't be that effective. I don't know, but I think that, there is some, of course, like pros and cons to the changing of the format, changing the way of thinking and changing the way of relating to each other to some extent. So I think I can say that on behalf of my group, but I also see members from my group here joining Jitsi, so maybe someone has more to add to this.
If I can say something to add, I agree with both of the previous comments, both from Laura and Marietta. In our case, we are trying to synchronize space to understand what our space, the object of our writing is. So we are conceptualizing a unique space for the 5 characters, and this is probably one of the most difficult things to achieve. So certain concepts, because we know that we are in living a time of augmented reality on a psychological level. So having trying to reach the physicality and trying to have a consensus is probably the hardest thing right now. Thank you.
Chapella, would you something?
Is a list.
Margarita would like to add something, and then I'll go.
Yeah, it's a very quick one. Thanks a lot. It was great to have a little bit of insight into the different trajectories of the various groups. I think you all did a great job. Really, I am utterly fascinated by everything I saw, and I look forward to see how this brews further in whatever direction it takes. I just would like to say something maybe lateral, but I like the fact that Biofriction opted to choose not the standard working platform like Zoom and other social media, because of course the most popular ones are very effective and everyone is already used to it. But I'm a big fan of open source technology, and it has been hugely influential to me, also in the way I work in my research and in the way I approach working with biological matter, thinking about the complexity. There is always a hacker inside. And of course, this comes with a little bit of adjustment needed, because maybe we're not used to something, we have to learn something else. But I do appreciate this choice a lot. So thank you.
So finally, I would like to say that at least my experience of the Corona times and how we were forced to interact now through virtual platforms has been a lot of fun, because I get to hang out and visit all these conferences and meet people that would otherwise I would probably only meet during conferences or festivals. So in our group, we have Leslie and Adriana from the States, and then some are in the Netherlands, some in Ljubljana, in Belgium. So, wow, I don't think had Corona had not happened, we probably wouldn't be so willing to accept that we just collaborate online. So here I go again with the silver lining. But yeah, I do really appreciate that these friendships, although they're not fully embodied yet, can nevertheless happen.
Yeah, thanks so much. Yes, want to say thanks also to Margarita for the comment. Of course, for us as a project, Biofriction, I mean, when we choose to use open source tools and materials, software, hardwares, there's a commitment, of course, in politics. It's challenging because, as you said, social platforms are always effective. So how to, in a way, reject to be effective or to take the risk, but how not to do it in a project that is called Biofriction and is supposed to work from frictions. So also for us is a crucial, is a key to have this commitment as is possible to always use open tools and also to facilitate the generation of these open tools. And also, as I said before, Biofriction is pretty related to the work that a lot of people have been doing previously, such as Bacteria, for example, but also here in Angar, Prototipome, a research project that was here for 2 years and was coordinated by Pech Blenda, is also one of the nodes of Bacteria, and was working on open health. So for us was crucial, at least, to try to maintain this commitment with open tools and platforms. So yes. Thanks so much. We have some questions, so probably we can share them if you want. It's my pleasure to say that some people from La Escocesa is an art space here in Barcelona, close to Angar, so thanks for watching. They are saying that they will like to know more about the ergodic participatory writing as a methodology in the future, because they are working in creating some methodologies for bodies encounters in real space in the art context. So I don't know if maybe do you want to say something else about this?
Yeah.
Okay, super.
Laura, I don't know if this is visible to the person who made a question. Please feel free to contact me by email if you want more info. This is if you're working with interactive forms of art, of performative art, it's probably quite possible. We are applying it as cyber literature and also a sort of more conceptual poetry. So it's a different kind of medium. But for sure, this can be used in performative art. So I would prefer it to have a one-on-one conversation with whoever wants to develop this in dance in real space.
Super. Thanks to you. Thanks so much. I don't know if some of you have more questions, comments. I would okay. I also would like to take the opportunity to say that, of course, this is quite challenging. I mean, of course, we are, you know, like we are talking from our privileges. Of course, we know it, but it's quite challenging to think of a project such as Biofriction that is based in transnational mobility during these days, and also, you know, to maintain these commitments with open tools, and at the same time trying to organize these working groups to take care of these spaces, for at least trying to have this critical debates, let's say with let's say proper temporality, or at least qualitative temporality, without you know, like perpetuating the same strategy of capitalizing the narratives on the situation, on the COVID, you know, without this conception of doing activities because we have to say something to capitalize the narrative and storytelling of the COVID situation. So this is challenging as well for, I think that for all of us. Okay, so if there is no more questions or comments, probably we could finish here. Is there a question? I can see it. I can see the question.
Margarita would like to.
Sorry. Super. Sorry, Margarita.
I'd like to something that Marietta introduced as one of the trajectories that we have, that we have seen emerging from our conversation is something that actually Marcus mentioned as this viral agent acted as a magnifier of what we see around us. Like we've seen our situatedness has been low. Now we have seen we are alone, we have to stay to reduce social contact, but we are in contact with an exceptional international community of thinkers, researchers, artists like you, and we for which I'm hugely grateful. But we also see how the struggle of others has become even greater in these times. And I think as an artist and as a researcher, I would like to acknowledge what is happening around us outside the art and research bubble, and maybe we don't know what we can do practically to hinder the suffering, but at least I would like to express my solidarity, and I'm pretty sure I am not alone in this, and thinking how this invisible agent just swirled around the world and made us, all of us, more vulnerable, and so I would like to acknowledge our own vulnerability and also the one of others. Just a small comment.
Yeah, yes, totally. I mean, thanks so much for your comments. Of course, you are not alone at all. I think that we are all in the same situation, and also it's been pretty interesting as well as, you know, like seeing, as probably is happening everywhere in the place that you are based right now, how different networks of solidarity and mutual aid are being articulated precisely with the ones who are stuck, you know, with the ones who has no the right to choose to stay at home, or, you know, or even they are not considered citizens in Europe. And what does it mean, no? Not to be considered as a citizen? For the ones who for sure they have a clear idea about how the perverse fiction of borders works, and what are the hyper-real consequences of this, of how these perverse fictions of borders and mobilities works. So yeah, totally. Thanks so much for your comment.
And I also would like to say that I really appreciate the work by the group Arts, sorry, I'm very slow with name, but Art Shows and Public Health, because it reminds us how important it is to imagine. Like the speculative fiction work they are doing, it's great because we need to imagine alternative ways, and we need to imagine how we want the world to be, how we want art to be, our world or the world we inhabit. So it's a great exercise you're inviting us to. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. In fact, probably from this presentation and the next presentations that we'll be hosting the following weeks, probably will be some collaborations between different projects and different spaces that are also trying to imagine how these art shows and art curating could be possible after this or from this particular situation. So yes. I don't know if you have more comments, questions, or if we have some questions on the chat. There's no more questions on the chat.
I mean, if I may just say something really briefly, I just wanted to sort of reiterate what other people have been saying, about how great it is to be able to do this online, in the sense of, this would not necessarily have been possible had the virus not existed. And as someone who's currently based in the US, and I'm sure all of you are very aware of what's going on in the US these days, it's a very big country. So there's lots of spaces where things are calm and lots of spaces where places are not. But I'm, reiterating sort of what Margarita was saying and others, that this is a great way to sort of imagine how we can live differently and not perpetuate everything that has led to the situations, not only here in the US, but in Slovenia and other places around the world, in Hong Kong and so forth, over the past decades, years, centuries, and so forth. And I see this as a way to explore these possibilities. So thank you for opening this up to people beyond the European continent.
Thanks so much. So would you like to add some more comments, questions, or Robertina? Super.
Hello. It was great to hear all the discussions and also the group presentations. It's really fun to be part of all of this. What I would like to add is only already before all this kind of pandemic and I started to rethink our mobilities, because we all have been quite privileged to be able to shift locations so many times and fly around and so on. So I think that this kind of exercise is excellent also to learn how to do it later on, when and all, when we will all start again being super active and traveling from point to point and just bouncing around. I think it will be very appreciative to have all these kinds of experiences. So that's why I'm super happy that Dalila and Marta invited me into this group into it, because it's really helping me a lot to rethink not only how we will travel, but also how we will show our shows, how we will show our art. Do we need to have this kind of heavy big boxes, which I sometimes carry, bring around the world, or so it's all this kind of stuff was anyway. I was talking also a lot with Margarita about it, totally in our private conversations, which we had a lot of them and so on. So this kind of opportunity to show this also publicly, it means a lot to me also. So I'm also appreciating this a lot, like everybody else. Like we are just like clapping to each other. But I think it's important, and I think that we are also very privileged in having this knowledge and history of knowing each other, that we have been able to meet, because what I'm thinking a lot is also with younger generation, which will not have maybe this kind of possibility so quickly. So, you know, how to open up to them also the same stage we all have been and are still able to see. But, you know, there's lots of questions to go in, but it's just like, I'm really glad that I can open up all this in this kind of amazing group of people.
Yeah, thanks so much, Robertina. Yeah, in fact, this is a key question, no? I mean, it's pretty, let's say, curious how, you know, in a European project based in transnational mobility, because the conditions of cognitive capitalism and the mismatchings of cognitive capitalisms, we are rethinking from a project based in transnational mobility how to change, no, our way of doing, no, our being with and being together, but in a different way, no. And what happens in terms of environmental struggle as well is taking the potential of these mismatchings in order to rethink in critical terms from a pretty peculiar place, let's say, precisely these mismatchings, no, this double condition.
Can you hear me? Because I just have written about my my need to take to say something. Can you hear me, or it's still like not working?
It's working.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, first of all, I would like to say thank you for Marta and Dalila for this brilliant invitation, because it's some way of doing a new things from my perspective, because I used to be strongly focused on working with the biomatter, but right now it's like the moment to try to work maybe in a more conceptual way. And thank you for all of you for these brilliant presentations and proposals. And from my perspective, it's not something like projecting the future or like thinking about something which is going to happen. I think it's something what is happening, and it's like we are already producing something like a kind of art. And we are all are working for like a new form of art, let's say. And I'm really curious what is going to be a result of our collaboration, and if we are able to really propose something which is going to be more general, or the general is going to be first. I mean, something is happening around the world, and we are just a part of that. And yeah, that's my observation and my hope.
It seems that I have a delay. I don't know if, can you hear me properly? Yes? Okay. Yeah, no, thank you so much, Carolina, for your comment. Totally agree. No, I think that also we are like having this opportunity to work on temporalities, no, to see how these working groups are also, you know, like an encounter to work on this, let's say, now, and what does it mean to be together in this now, no, to be entangled in this now, in this what are the material conditions of this now, of this temporality, And well, I would also like to think, but probably it's just a desire, if from these peculiar material conditions of this now, we can imagine different temporalities, not just chronological, but that's just my desire. So, any more comments or questions? Checking the chat, it seems. Okay. Isabel? Hi. Super. Isabel, you are on mute.
There, all right. Hello. Yeah, I got inspired by listening to my peers in our group, work group to add a little bit. It's been wonderful to be part of this. I feel actually very fortunate. And I wanted to share a little bit what has been to me the understanding of collaboration. In the sense of how this distancing, but the fact that we're provided this means we've been allowed to explore collaboration, and in the sense of permeability, like how can distance also allow us to permeate each other, and in that sense, like how your individual character or research can open up to the extent in which you feel it kind of dissolving in the hands of the others, and in that process becoming something. And I think it's I don't know, maybe it's part of this kind of state of emergency in which we are all into somehow, you know, where we are needing to break also the understanding of, as you were saying, the ways in which we are used to work, you know. And my experience has been kind of like a love experience so far, you know, like kind of like falling in love with the other, you know, like it's like the skin barriers are there but not there, you know what I mean? Like this virtual kind of relationship that we're establishing in a way is helping also departicularize our skin borders, you know, and then it becomes kind of very essential the way you relate to each other. So my experience has been an experience of love somehow. Like I'm learning to meet other people. I'm learning to hear about the researchers, and in that process, kind of like falling in love with the other as an essential. I don't know if it's a principle or attitude that it's kind of generated in this way of exchanging with each other. And also how that love brings a sense of power back to us, you see, and kind of back to what art means, right? And you have mentioned today about like the art bubble that we are part of, but I strongly believe that art is like a very strong political tool for today. And it, in my experience in this residency, it has to do with, it sounds like a cliche, but I will say it, like the power of love. You know, so I really felt my skin boundaries like dissolving, and like to the point of saying, look, I come up with this and do whatever you want with it. Like I allow myself to be dissolved in this collective. So I'm really like also questioning that, like how are we normally working as artists? Like, you know, how much are you centered in the self and how much are you centered in the collective? I think that's a very important question for like the immediate present and future. And it is a learning process in this for our viral times. right? So it's not only the question of like from the economy that is around the arts to the way in which we normally create and how are we willing to continue creating. And I repeat, I think like the notion of the collective is becoming something very strong. And it's something to take into account. And for that, I'm very grateful to having been or to be part of this. You know, I find it like a sustaining hub for that exploration. So that hopefully we can kind of that experience can, how to say, like feedback or give back to that question in the arts, like how do we normally do what we do, like on a very in the very human sense of the word, because we're still humans. Like I don't think any of us has been genetically modified yet, right? So there's still the human condition. So yeah, just love and power. Thank you.
Thanks to you, Isabel. Yeah, I mean, for example, in our group, we have 3 collectives, and also sometimes it's challenging because the majority of them, for example, every decision should be made by an assembly. So temporalities are completely different, but precisely for that also, I think that it's a super opportunity to learn in political terms on how to do things with different methodologies, with different methods, with different structures. And at the same time, yeah, I think that we are all facing a super controversial question. I mean, potential and controversial at the same time, how to become together, no? What does it mean, this becoming together? What does it mean, becoming together beyond individualism, no? How to do it? What kind of relationships are being built in this becoming together? What kind, yeah, so I think that there are some key questions there that probably they will be showing up in all the groups and probably during all our lives as well. Yeah.
I would just like to, I forgot to tell it before, but I would also like to say that it's great that you have been as a project, like you, Laura, as an organizer, and everybody else also flexible to move the project into the situation which is happening now. You could just like roll it out like you have been, you know, you have been telling me a lot about this biofriction and what was the idea and how to bring these mobile residences together. So I think it's also great that you have been opening up to understand that change is happening and gave all of us also possibility to experience it together in different ways.
Well, thanks so much. It's not.
No, but it means a lot. It means a lot, you know, believe me.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you. I mean, it's not easy, as you can imagine, but also it's possible, it's not because of me, it's because of everyone being involved in this project. It's because Bio Society, Cultivamos Cultura, Kersnikova, and Angar as well, because of the disposition to, and the commitment with the project, you know, and yeah, in these terms, we are trying to do our best. So we are experimenting at the same time. So yeah, I mean, working from friction has this kind of issues as well. So yeah, I think that for us, there's no possibility of not doing it. So
Yeah, I think that if I can just, jump in on that on that wagon, I mean, I just wanted to say that, yeah, I mean, the biggest thanks from our group from me personally. I do think that it has happened. I mean, it has already appeared in many voices before, namely that this actually opportunity or this situation. Meaning also that the kind of transformation that Biofriction project got, or the stage it got into because of the situation, also opens so many possibilities. And I think that in that sense, also to second, I think Chapella and some other people before, chances of meeting people that I think that actually, had we been in the kind of usual conditions, meaning like the actual mobility, physical mobility, it would have never happened to the extent it happened. So, and is happening actually. So, I mean, biggest thanks to you for actually opening those potentials. And I mean, it really means a lot, and we'll see where it leads us. So thank you.
Yeah, I guess the next question for us in Biofriction would be like, how would we bring this amazing group of people then back into the project, or like what are the ways to bring this expertise then on site to the other activities which we have planned to reconnect to the different localities, because I think this is really a big challenge, how we facilitate those experiences which we have on screen and bring them back into our cultural experience, into our cultural work of the different organizations also. So and I hope that maybe this could be also something the different groups could kind of think on. Like how do these results which the groups produce then kind of pave a way over the next years also into the project. And in general, I'm really excited about the amount of expertise and the high motivation which was shown today. I'm really looking forward to what the results will be. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much, Erica. I think that we all agree that I would take this as a starting point for multiple encounters, collaborations, and entanglements. So yes, we'll see for sure. I think that we are privileged right now, no, for having all these people involved and with this commitment with the project. So yes, absolutely yes. And for the comment that I can see in the chat, yes, some people is saying that, yeah, totally agree. Super. So anyone? Okay. Luis.
Hi. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Hi. I think I was really just reiterating. I was starting to formulate something and I wasn't sure if my mic was even working, so I put it in the comments. But essentially, I wanted to first of all share that it's the same view I think I have that many of us have, is that we're in a particular point where we are a really rich and really special community in terms of some of the ideas that are coming together here and the ways in which we are acting on and sharing information in light of what is happening right now. And I wanted to kind of agree with something that Robertina mentioned also in relation to the fact that this is something that I'm sure we were all thinking about previously with relation to maybe climate change or other activities that are causing us to think differently about the way that we work. And so from that perspective, I think we do have a really interesting set of experiences. And I think that what you've done, Laura, by bringing everybody together in these groups is a really fantastic and interesting way of allowing some new and hopefully very rich information, rich ideas, rich ways of thinking, rich ways of working to come out. And I hope that we can find new projects and new ways of sharing this beyond the communities that we're currently in, because we all have additional communities, additional art communities, additional science communities that we're maybe each individually part of as well. And I think that will be a really interesting next set of steps beyond what's happening and what we're doing right now. But really, I just wanted to share my appreciation of what everyone is doing right now, and I feel very privileged to be a part of the group, so thank you.
Well, again, thanks so much, Luis. Yeah, what can I say? I mean, for us, I think that the Biofriction teams, the Biofriction partnership is a dream team. So everything is much more easier when you can trust the other ones with whom you are working with. And this is a crucial point for us, I would say. And yes, I don't know the other ones here from the park would like to add something. Yeah. Yeah, Marta, that's true. Not so much friction in this conversation. A bit more emo than friction. But probably also we need it these days, no?
There's lots of frictions outside.
Yeah.
So it's like from micro till macro levels. So all is covered, I think.
Yeah, totally.
Perhaps too many frictions, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so it's almost 8 o'clock, so I don't know if someone else wants to add something, to comment something, to add a question, or if not, we can finish here. And also, once again, thank you so much to all of you for participating in the working groups. Luis would like to speak again, yes? Because I'm not sure if I have a delay, Luis.
Sorry, that was a mistake.
Okay. Mistakes are possibilities, so don't say sorry. No, so I was saying that thank you so much to all of you for joining, and special thanks to Marietta, to Chapella. I lost you. Yeah, I have a delay. Can you hear me properly? Okay, so I was saying that special thanks, of course, to Chapella, Marietta, and Dalila, and to all of you. Stay tuned, because we'll be hosting the presentation of the working groups. The next one is the non-living queryings on the 17th of June. So stay tuned, and thanks so much, and see you soon, I hope. Best wishes.